Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. This is the AEW Dynamite review, the fallout from All Out in what was a shocking pay-per-view, controversy, heel turns, you name it. It happened at All Out. This week's Dynamite put us on the road to Grand Slam, just a few short weeks away from a big episode of Dynamite Grand Slam. But things have changed in that instance, but in regards to matches, we'll get into that. We'll get into that on this show, shall we say? But the AEW started with the patriarchy. Christian Cage, he finally says that Killswitch is a part of the family. They've been having a little bit of a miscommunication. There's been times where Killswitch looked as if he was going to come away from the patriarchy, but he did indeed not do that, and he was part of the whole part where Christian was going to catch in on Danielson, and obviously Moxley All Out prevented that from happening before attacking Danielson and putting a paper bag over his head himself. But Christian Cage is basically saying that he will soon be the reigning, defending, undisputed champion, and he did even go a bit further than that and saying he will beat Danielson so bad that he will wish Brie had the CTE. Woof. God. Christian Cage being Christian Cage, as we would say on AEW this week. Doing tremendous work is Christian Cage. But awesome. Loved it. Christian Cage is probably one of the best heels in the business at this moment in time. He is doing a lot of good stuff. He is still going on and still being crazy as we speak. So Christian Cage, eyes on the title, but he's not getting it just yet. It leads us out the back, and if you remember, Will Ospreay kind of was with Don Callis and the family. He wanted to move away from the family. Don Callis said, absolutely you can do that, but at some point we're going to ask you for a favor. And the favor that Don Callis said Ospreay needs to do is to team up with with his United Empire breadwin, Carl Fletcher, in the tag team gauntlet match that is scheduled for later on Dynamite. Will Ospreay agrees to do so, and him and Carl Fletcher will indeed be in that gauntlet. And thus, we suspect repaying the favor from the Don Callis family. However, we don't know that for sure. Finally, a match gets underway, and it is for the TNT Championship. Jack Perry, who was unsuccessful in defeating Bryan Danielson at All Out in a really good encounter. Jack Perry doing his best work with the evil EPPs, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, and of course we can throw in the bitch Okada with that as well. He was taking on Leo Rush, who come out with Action Andretti in this. The match was short and sweet, and it did remind us why Jack Perry is the champion. He did get it. It was a glorified squash to a degree, but it puts Jack Perry back into a bit of a stronger position. I mean, you're not going to be weak losing to Danielson. It wasn't as if he lost, in any particular squash to Danielson. He put a very good account of himself, did Jack Perry did. But it was good to see him rebound straight back, look strong as the champion should do. And it was kind of good. It was reasonably short, because if he'd gone into a really competitive long match with Leo Rush, and even though he would have won it, there is that aspect of, is he still weak from the Danielson defeat? So very, very good from AEW in that sense. And actually, after that, Jack Perry was at the back, and he says, people like his are crucified in this life, so they can't be worshipped. And Perry hops in the scapegoat bus and drives off. So Jack Perry retains, looking strong as he should do. Now, there was another interview. Renee Paquette, or Renee Moxley, or Renee, whatever you want to call her, was interviewing a Hangman Page, and he basically said that if he found 1,000 houses of Swerves, he would have burned every single one of them. Page says that he meant every bruise, every piece of flesh, and every drop of blood. And if you stood between him and Page, he will find you and he will hurt you. And funny enough, he did run into the Dark Order. He said he doesn't even know who he is anymore. And then Jeff Jarrett tried to talk some sense into Hangman, and then he sucker punches Jeff Jarrett and throws him into some chairs and storms off. Hangman Page still deluded, still insane, but kind of trying to go into that weird, the next gear. We know Swerve's going to be out for a while now, and kind of hopefully putting to bed that feud. Will it resurface later on? I'm not sure that you can resurface this feud later on. I think that now Swerve has won two, and I think Hangman won one of their matches, and that kind of puts Swerve still in the stronger place. I just don't think that we need to see it again. I'm not sure how you can see that feud again, or how that feud can happen again after everything that transpired recently. Hangman going to Jeff Jarrett, I'm not sure that's even the right way for Hangman. Perhaps, I don't even know where he can go at the minute. It seems to be everything's kind of fitting into place. Hangman was away for a while and not lost in the shuffle as such, but kind of putting to bed that feud with Swerve, at least now for the foreseeable. Now he needs to move on to something else. But the question is, what is that something else? And we'll have to wait and see on Dynamite. Now, we're moving on quickly here. Private Party and Commander hit the ring, but as they do, the BCC or the PCC or PAC-CC come in and attack everybody. Marina Shafir puts Commander to sleep with a choke. Everyone else gets decimated. Pac then got on the mic, says enough is enough and the company is broken. That he's a product of the environment and he's been lost for very long, but now he's got a purpose. Diplomacy has failed and this company is theirs. Moxley didn't talk about why he done what he done to Danielson. That's an interesting piece on that. They didn't talk about that. We haven't got a reason for it yet. Maybe that's going to happen next week at Dynamite. Maybe it happens at Grand Slam, assuming Danielson is fit. Now, more on Grand Slam and Danielson coming in. And there's more from John Moxley a bit later on as well, involving somebody else. And that's where things change and the complexion of Grand Slam changes because of John Moxley. The second match on the card, Ricochet, Sammy Guevara. I feel as if the commercial break kind of stopped the flow. But once that commercial break finished, the match was brilliant. Ricochet feels like a big star in AEW already. The fact that he beat Sammy Guevara kind of felt like perhaps this match was a little bit too soon for Sammy Guevara because he's just been on this roller coaster in Ring of Honor. He's won titles with Dustin Rhodes. And I feel like coming back to Dynamite and losing probably wasn't the right thing to do. Sammy done right by Ricochet here by taking the fall, obviously. But I just feel like it could have way up. Maybe they could have put Ricochet in there with somebody else. I know that him and Sammy Guevara was always going to tear it up as a match because they're two very much great high flyers, exciting. They get you off your feet. They do things that make you, well, sometimes they do things that you can't even believe they're doing. So I get the reason for them to have a match. I just don't feel the timing of the match was particularly right, considering Sammy's not long been back. At least on Ring of Honor, he hasn't been on Dynamite anyway. But afterwards, the Beast Mortos is here, and he literally spears Ricochet into row 3 of the ringside. Sammy Guevara makes the save of the chair. They do have an embrace afterwards, and they did obviously. We saw Ricochet and Ospreay have a stare down, but looking as though at the moment, Ricochet's focus is going to be on the Beast Mortos, who has been on a wrecking spree, really, on Collision and Rampage. So that's an interesting one for Ricochet. It's a good position I think Ricochet's in at the moment. The match itself with Guevara was great. I just, again, feel like it was a little bit wrong timing to put Sammy Guevara in there. But there we go. Okada was next, and he said All Out was the hardest night of his life, but he did it. It was so easy. Through fake tears, of course. Don Callis and Kanoshe Takeshita are here. Okada says Takeshita will be a champion, just not the Continental Champion bitch. But seemingly we're going into a match that will certainly happen at one point, and I'll be all here for that. Okada Takeshita for the Continental Championship should be an absolute barn burner when AEW put it on. And I do the fact that they're teasing it in matches that we're getting as a tag and a six person, but not one on one. So they're doing a good job in planting a few seeds and, you know, having these two compete in matches against each other, just not in a one on one environment. And I'm really intrigued to see when that match actually happens. Are we going to get a few matches between them one on one? Are we just going to get one? I'm hoping AEW gives us a bit of a trilogy between Takeshita and Okada, because I think that's going to be really, really 3 or 4 really, really good matches if they do that. Like I said, they have been paired against each other in other matches, and even one coming up, I think, as early as next week on Dynamite. But Okada, Takeshita for the Continental Championship could be something that we see very, very soon on AEW. Now, we mentioned earlier on that Jon Moxley wasn't finished. Absolutely not. Darby Allin is back. He's here. He's not hiding from Moxley. And he's right here. And out comes Moxley. And Moxley said he doesn't know what Darby said or heard, but nothing has changed between the two. Basically, Darby then said he's had enough and he wants to talk about it. Darby says he and Moxley are alike and they don't take any of this for granted. And they give AEW, and AEW gave him everything. Darby looked for a hero when he was a young wrestler, and they all showed how fake they were, except Jon Moxley. Moxley will still wrestle in a high school gym because he loves the business. And they first met in a high school gym in the Independence, where he gained the confidence. And basically what they were alluding to, and Jon Moxley wanted Darby Allin to give him the shot at Grand Slam instead of him against Bryan Danielson. Instead of Darby Allin taking the shot against Bryan Danielson, he wanted to take Darby Allin's shot to him and be the one that takes on Danielson. And Moxley said, and Darby wants to know if Moxley has started drinking again. So now it's turned into Moxley wants Darby Allin in New York at Grand Slam, and the winner of that match will take on the AEW Heavyweight Championship, whoever that may be. Moxley also said that Darby Allin doesn't even know what's going on here, and he will teach him a lesson the hard way. Darby has accepted that challenge and also said, if you're trying to burn AEW to the ground, don't be surprised if Darby pulls him into the fire. So what's going to happen at Grand Slam is now Darby Allin's title shot is not happening at Grand Slam. He is going to go one-on-one with Jon Moxley of the BCC. And whoever wins that match will have the title shot to go against potentially Bryan Danielson, potentially somebody else, more on that in a minute, for the AEW Heavyweight Championship. That's an interesting twist to this. Darby, who had earned it in Royal Rampage a few months ago, if you remember, is now potentially giving up the shot, and I think he will lose that match to Moxley, and Moxley will then hopefully go on to take on potentially Bryan Danielson somewhere down the line. And then, of course, you've got the Christian Cage contract, which can be taken at any moment in time. So very interesting to see how that pans out. But a twist going into Grand Slam, and Moxley is now the man that will face Darby Allin for the right to face the AEW Heavyweight Champion. Interesting times. Now, Christopher Daniels was with Alex Marvez, and just as he done that, Nigel McGuinness was there, and he wanted to word with Tony Khan right now. And he went and had that word with Tony Khan. And as we done that, there was a World Women's Championship eliminator, Mariah May against Queen Emanator. It was a nice showing from Animator here. Actually, and I said this probably 6 months ago, that she had a lot of potential, and she does. There was never, I don't think she was ever in a position where she was going to beat Mariah May in this. Mariah May certainly won with the Storm Zero, funnily enough, to pick up this match. And, you know, it's an interesting one because Mariah May was always going to win the match. I always said that Anna Martin needed to start picking up victories a little bit. She has done along the way. Losing this one isn't going to be a massive issue, I don't think. But with Animator and with the stacked women's division, they're going to need to start doing something with her if they've got serious aspirations for her. And she's got a lot of potential in this. And although Mariah May continues in her to have a title reign in very impressive fashion, I do want to see more of Animator, and I do want to see more victories for Animator, and hopefully build up to perhaps a title run along the way. And Mariah May at the end of this picked up the mic, and she hasn't had a championship celebration yet. And she was also saying that something's missing. Someone is missing, and that someone is Mina Christ or Mai Shikawa. Hopefully, I've said that right. If not, I apologize. Is missing. And then it cuts to the Bucks, and they said that the fans shouldn't be mad at them. They should be mad at the tag teams who are not good enough to top the division, and that's why they booked the Casino Gauntlet anyway. The Casino Gauntlet main event's Dynamite this week. The Learning Tree was next against the Iron Savages. It really did last long. Learning Tree picking up the victory there. It was pretty much diamond dust from Keith, and that was it. However, Jericho then got the mic and has said everyone knows that he wants the $7,000 back from Orange Cassidy, and he's going to steal him from Cassidy until he's satisfied. And Jericho recently showed a picture of Cassidy with the best friends kept in his backpack, but he did say that friends will always turn on each other, which got a look from Big Bill. Keep a note on that, because that's something that's going to obviously happen there, it seems, between Jericho and Big Bill later on. And Jericho wants his cash. Orange Cassidy was on the trot. He says he has Jericho's money, and he instructs Carl O'Reilly and Mike Briscoe to dump a ton of change in Jericho's Bentley, which they've dumped in. It was quite a funny bit because Cassidy then pulled out, I think, a couple of dollars, put it on the top, took a couple of cents back of the change and left. It was quite funny, which there Jericho hated it. Jericho and Cassidy had something back in the COVID days, and they had the mimosa match in the full of orange juice match. But look, it was what it was. This I don't really know what they're doing. I do still like the Learning Tree. I'm still not a fan of Jericho in the ring, and I don't think it will ever change, to be quite honest with you. Nevertheless, it's seemingly that we're going to be on another collision course between Cassidy and Jericho in the near future. So we'll see how that goes. Now, not again, another big swerve going into Grand Slam in 2 weeks' time. Nigel McGuinness hits the ring, and he wants to get something off his chest. He says there's not going to be an AEW World Heavyweight Championship match at Grand Slam, which is great for the champion and not good at AEW. And he says Nigel said an event like Grand Slam should have a champion, at least someone to compete, which brings Nigel to Danielson. And he said Danielson is afraid of Nigel. He's afraid of the one match that everybody wants to see. He said Tony Khan isn't afraid, however. And this is a contract for Bryan Danielson against Nigel McGuinness at Grand Slam. It is on if Bryan Danielson is fit enough after being suffocated with a plastic bag at All Out. If he is medically cleared, he is taking on Nigel McGuinness in a match at Grand Slam. We go way back to the Ring of Honor days for that one. Take my money. I cannot wait to see that match at Grand Slam in a couple of weeks' time. Hopefully Danielson's cleared so we can see it happen. It will be grand, literally be grand if that happens at Grand Slam. So 2 swerves going into Grand Slam, but not Swerve Strickland. 2 match swerves, 2 matches with massive implications at Grand Slam. Looking very much forward to that. Now, the main event was the tag team gauntlet. I'm not going to go into everything. It was the format for this never disappoints. But if I were an AEW, I'd shelve it for a little while to make it fresh. We've seen a lot of these gauntlets for too long now. And I think, the right guys won. And we'll get into who they were in a minute. And there is a lot of ways to go with this. Now, the winners were Ospreay and Carl Fletcher. So they will take on the Young Bucks at Grand Slam, I believe, for the tag team championship. There was a bit of the Grizzled Young Veterans were in this. FTR was in this. The Acclaimed were in this as well. Who else was there? Anybody? The Kingdom were in it. Eminem Collection was in it as well. The Righteous was in there. There was a lot of teams in there in this match, and I feel as if there was a bit of not controversy. There was a bit on this online. Our good friend Gary Joe that does the Follow the Elite, the FTR page, Forever the Elite page, sorry. And he was even saying that the Outrunners should have won this match. I love the Outrunners, by the way. Big fans of them in NWA. They're getting massive responses on AEW at the minute. They're doing some really good stuff. And it seemed that that there was quite a bit of a debate online, and he was saying that he believes that the Outrunners should have won this because of the momentum they had bringing on. Carl Fletcher and Ospreay winning it probably is right from a logical standpoint, but also interesting where they go with this. Now, all along, myself and Dave have been saying, is we going to get the Undisputed Era back, or is there going to be a turn in this? And maybe the match with the Young Bucks brings Mark Davis back into the equation. And then what does that do? Do they join to make the United Empire, or does Davis and Carl Fletcher turn on Ospreay and thus align themselves again? Well, not align themselves. Carl Fletcher is in the Don Pattis family, but do they turn on Will Ospreay at that point? And that's what we got to look forward to in a couple of weeks' time. At Grand Slam as well. But they did show a lot of good stuff. Grizzled Young Veterans are in there, like I said before. The Outrunners, the tag team division there has probably lost. Well, they lost out to the Motor City Machine Guns. Seemingly, they're going to be debuting on NXT next week. Penta and Ray Phoenix obviously leaving as well. So you could argue that there's some room in there for some more tag teams. So perhaps some from Ring of Honor. I know we saw the Righteous, but perhaps some more from Ring of Honor. Perhaps there's some more in general. But we'll wait and see. Ospreay, Fletcher, Young Bucks at Grand Slam in a few weeks' time. Dynamite was decent this week. I felt that there was a lot of talking segments, maybe not enough action, but some weeks there's maybe too much action and not enough build. So you can never get the best of you can never kind of get it the way you want it. But solid Dynamite leading us into Grand Slam. Still nothing from Moxley as to why he done what he did to Danielson. Hopefully we get a bit more of that maybe next week as we build towards Grand Slam in 2 weeks' time. But this was the AEW Dynamite review on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, the front man, Adam Cousins. Keep it locked to the channel. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube at HTT Buckle. Go and follow us on X at HTT Buckle and on Instagram at Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Big weekend coming up. We're going to be at Ignite Wrestling on Sunday as our Turnbuckle title is defended. An announcement is not so far away about yet another big move that we're making within the wrestling business. So keep it locked on the channels and you will see what that move is when we're allowed to announce it. But until we're back tomorrow with the review of Victory Road with the SmackDown Lowdown, keep it hooked on the channel. And until then, everybody, buckle down. Stay safe. Goodbye.